A key source of fluctuation in a macroeconomy is changes in investment. Again, investment is purchases of factory equipment, housing stock, inventories in the economy. This is often what we call pro-cyclical, that in a boom time you tend to have lots of investment in those things. When things start to go badly, people start to reduce their investment quickly. So firms are very unlikely to install new plant and equipment if they think that the economy is going south. Now I want to, this is part of the looking at the investment savings equilibrium. In a previous video we talked about the savings part. Now I want to talk about the capital part. I'm going to be a little bit more technical on this side because it in large part relates back to things that you've learned in a microeconomics class. And so first we want to think about the cost to a firm of purchasing capital. And we're going to think about this in the context of a firm that has to borrow funds in order to buy capital equipment. So they don't have funds just lying around. They got to go out to borrow the funds. And we're also going to take into account that there's depreciation in the value of capital as the capital gets older and it's not as efficient as it was to start with. So we've got this concept of the user cost of capital, which has two components. One is the cost of borrowed funds multiplied times how much the capital costs, plus the rate of depreciation multiplied times the price of capital. So when firms are deciding how much capital to buy, that's the cost. Now, in some contexts, it's going to be easy and useful to talk about this as being the interest rate plus depreciation times the price of capital. Okay, so this is the cost side of things. Now, one thing that you have seen before is a relationship between the benefits of capital and the quantity of capital. This is our old familiar marginal productivity of capital graph. Okay, so in this instance, we've got declining marginal productivity of capital as you increase the amount of capital that's used. Firms will choose a level of capital stock they want to attain where the user cost of hiring capital equals the marginal benefit of using the capital. So this is kind of what we've seen before, slightly modified, where that's the desired capital stock. And I'm going to be looking at potentially how that will be affected, for example, by an increase or a change in the real interest rate for borrowing funds. So, for example, if you would had an increase in R, that's the increase in the cost of borrowing funds, what you would see is that the user cost would rise and you would have a lower level of capital that is desired. Pretty standard stuff. Marginal benefit, marginal cost. It's just that the interest rate is going to affect the cost of capital. If If the depreciation rate changed, we would also have a change in the user cost, but let's set that one aside. Okay, so here's the desired level of capital, and let me do this over here. So we have, it's going to be a slightly different depiction than one we've seen before. So the investment, okay, so the investment is the change in the capital stock. Okay, the capital stock is a level. Investment is the change in the level of the capital stock from one period to the next. So let's think about the desired level of investment. Okay, so again, we're very much interested in how firms decide to choose this, and that is going to be, okay, the investment in time t is going to be equal to the difference between the desired capital stock, okay, that's the target, minus the capital stock in the previous period, which we denote by t minus 1. It's the current period minus 1. So what you decide to do today is, in terms of investing, it depends on where you were and where you want to be. Okay? Now, you also may have to invest to simply replace the capital stock that's depreciating. Okay, so that's going to be the depreciation rate multiplied times KT. So even if you didn't want to change things, your capital stock is getting older, and so you gotta maintain, you gotta invest, you gotta buy new equipment just to stay put. So here's this investment relationship, which relates the desired capital stock, last year's capital stock, and a change in the depreciation. Okay. So let's imagine. Let's think about what can affect this the level of investment. Okay, so we're looking at things that will change desired investment. Okay. And one thing that should be clear from this graph over here, if the real interest rate goes up, then the desired capital stock is going to go down. Okay, it's more expensive to borrow. Firms will scale back. Okay, so what you would then have is that investment tends to fall if the interest rate goes up. Now that's just basically, it's more expensive to borrow funds, so you're going to invest less. Now I haven't really done this explicitly, but I think this is pretty easy to think about. Let's think about the tax rate on capital. So government sometimes will tax, there'll be corporate income taxes. There'll be taxes on the proceeds from capital. That's essentially is going to make reduce your desired capital stock if there's a higher rate of taxation on capital. So that would also cause the capital stock, the desired capital stock, to go down, and interest rates would tend to fall. Okay. Finally, let's think about a technological change. Because one of the things that happens, as you think about investment over time, firms are making adjustments because what they, based on what is happening to the technology. Now let's go back to this graph. Let me get this green line out of the way. And we'll use the black pen here. So how does a technological improvement change this graph? Okay, the decisions about picking the desired capital stock. Well, I think it's pretty clear that a technological advance will tend to increase the marginal productivity of capital and increase the desired capital stock, which means that investments would tend to rise. So when we think about the decisions, say, not just for firms, but for consumers to buy a house, for example, well, you can really probably take into account this first relationship: higher interest rates, less borrowing for houses, less investment in in housing, new housing. Okay, so we've put together the investment side of things. We've got the supply or the saving sides of things. In the next video, we're going to combine these two things to see how various aspects that can change will affect the desired or the amount of investment that takes place in an economy. Basically how the economy reacts to changes in these underlying savings and investment relationships.